Sharon, we now got to turn to that tragic event that happened over the weekend in Houston. 8 people mourning the loss of their loved ones who died during a deadly crowd surge at the sold-out Astroworld Festival, starring headliner and Houston native rapper Travis Scott. Some concert goers say the event was so tightly packed that when audience members were pushed toward the stage, they were crushed and could not breathe, many passing out. Dozens were injured and taken to the hospital. The ages of the victims who died range from just 14 years old to 27. Police also say they're investigating claims that some attendees were injected with drugs, including a security guard who was revived. While this horrific event is under a criminal investigation, raises a lot of questions about safety in these large crowds. So we've asked Carl Herron, a former crisis response agent for the FBI and former security manager for the former Georgia Dome in Atlanta, to discuss policies and procedures when it comes to these crowds here. Good morning, Carl. Thank you for joining us here. Wish we were under different circumstances. Wish it was more prevention than instead of looking back. But looking back at it, and I know there's still an investigation and you weren't there, you don't know the full scale of everything. How does something like this happen?
Good morning, Mike, and thanks for having me. What I can speak to with this incident is policies and procedures, things that are in place from the early on beginning of an event like this. Normally, the venue would work out a contract, and within that, within that contract, it would lay out the number of security, police, medical personnel that are needed for it. One of the things that is standard procedures is having those security folks and law enforcement there, is having the fire marshal involved for looking at overcrowding in spaces. Inside that contract that we're talking about, it should also lay out, as I call it, the command and control. Who makes the decision to cancel an event in the middle of an event? That can be delegated to the venue manager or the security manager, but always life safety is first. That's the first priority. So at any point, law enforcement or the fire marshal can come in there and pull the plug because of life safety issues. There are other things security-wise that normally we would put in place, and I don't know all of the details of this incident, but there should be barriers to keep the crowd from so close to the stage or the field. That can be a physical barrier. We call them bike racks, or they can be plastic barriers. And then another set of security officers there inside that perimeter. And a lot of that is monitoring the crowd, monitoring the movement. And then someone needs to be there to make the decision, okay, we need to try to either move the crowd back, or the fire marshal, as I said, once again, if it's overcrowded in a facility, they can make that call. So those are some of the things that you can go by when you're looking at an event like this, far as security, far as crowds, the plans, and then there's notification systems that usually are tested before every event. How are we going to notify the fans if there is an emergency? There's audio, visual ways that you can notify the fans, and now there's also text messages you can send to them if there's an evacuation, if there is for shelter in place, depending on what the incident or the crisis is. Right. So those are some of the things that you can put in place for controlling crowds and keeping the fans safe during a large major event of this type.
Yeah, we don't know everything that was actually put into place. As far as, like I said, the investigation is going on right now, but a lot of people are looking at the organizers. They're looking at Travis Scott himself. Should he have stopped? I know he stopped the concert several times. Is there more that he could have done to stop, to allow the medical personnel to do their jobs once he saw the ambulance out there? I know he stopped the concert a couple of times, but where was the responsibility from what you saw in trying to at least render the assistance necessary to the people that needed assistance there?
So that comes into play along with the performer, the producer, and the venue security management. So at some point when, if you see someone that's unconscious there, some type of delay or stoppage should have been made for rendering life safety right away, because you don't know if the person is, I read now that some people had heart conditions that they sent to the hospital. So you don't know what the condition of those people are. So at some point, you need to make a way where the emergency management folks, the medical people can get to those victims. Usually, we
Yeah,
would have a
Carl, I don't
lane.
mean to cut you off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To get a lane there. So once you saw the medical personnel out there, should there have been something in place where the medical personnel instructed the producers say this is not just somebody passing out due to exhaustion. There are more serious concerns out there. Should they have passed that along some kind of way to the concert promoters, whereas Travis Scott, who was on stage, or whoever was making the announcements, could have made that announcements to stop things from happening and to control the crowd a little bit more? Could that have been something they put in place?
Yes. So they should have, like I said, I'm not familiar with the entire setup. They should have something called a control center. That's where you have a medical representative, law enforcement, police. The producer has a representative in there, fire marshal, and that's where all of that information comes in, and those decisions are made. Okay, wait a minute. We need to get the medical people down there in the front of that stage to render assistance. And at that same command center, they would be able to notify, the performer that we have an emergency. And
Right.
that's the command and control structure that normally works on large venues for these types of events.
Right. All right. All right. So now we see these mosh pit situations a lot, and like when you don't have the assigned seatings, people are just rushing to the stage, and like you said, there's just this mass sea of just humanity out there, and people are going crazy, going wild. Sometimes the music, you just don't hear the screams of somebody who might be in dire pain or arrest or whatnot. What can be done in the future to prevent these type of incidents from happening?
So going back to policies and procedures, I think if certain things such as the medical piece, which like I said, life safety is always number one priority. You should have lanes for the medical vehicles, be it golf carts, be it an ambulance, to be able to get to all locations on the venue site. That's the first thing for as life safety is concerned. Then it should be an evacuation plan, and then they should have also, depending on the site, how many people you're going to put in that arena, in that venue site, because of just the type of thing that has happened this past weekend. That is why you have to put those procedures in there. You can't just put as many people into a venue site without looking at that safety and security issues that would come about if something does go wrong.
And because they don't have assigned seating, they're trying to get the best spot possible to see the stage. Obviously, we want to do that. Is there anything that they can do, even though there's a large crowd, to control the crowd, to make sure that people aren't running into the venue to try and find that site? Because we saw that there were incidents right off the bat coming through the gate, people trampling over each other just to try and get to that predetermined spot that's best for them.
Yes, there is a number of ways you can do that. You can section off, make different sections within the venue. Everybody's not going to have the best seat or the best place to stand. And so you can section it off, and then that would have a corridor in between those sections for emergency responders to get there. And so many people would be in only each, each section. And then you won't have that mass crowding and packed in people in tight areas like that.
Well, hopefully they'll heed the warnings that you're laying out there, and I'm pretty sure other personnel such as yourself warnings, so that we can avoid tragedies like this in the future. Once again, our thoughts and our prayers with the 8 victims and the many others who are countless in the hospital right now. Carl Herron, though, we appreciate your time. Thank you for your knowledge, your insight, and starting your day with us here this morning.